Okay, so I haven't gotten a chance to formally look at this. I've seen bits and pieces of it on Twitter and things like that about some of the complaints a lot of people are having in terms of is the killer roll cooked? Now, keep in mind, the PTB is there for us to test stuff, so we got to take everything with a grain of salt, right? We're taking everything with a grain of salt. We don't know if it's going to be changed or not, but from what I've seen, some of the stuff is tough. Obviously, we have the new killer that just came out, the Cross Suit, and we also have the new Survivor V. If you haven't got a chance, check out. There's plenty of videos online. I have one of them going over all the killer stuff, so make sure to go check those out. But I want to take a look at some of the other things. Earlier, they had teased some of the features that were going to be changed for the tunneling reduction, and also the slugging reduction updates. But we didn't know the actual status effects of what was actually going to happen. So the first thing we're talking about is tunneling. Now, obviously, in a custom match, you can toggle this feature off and on, which is really nice. It's going to help out for a lot of the tournaments and the competitive scene of DVD that doesn't want to deal with that stuff, so it doesn't affect that. So it looks like they definitely at least took that into consideration before they did any of that. So unhook protection update. Let's start with this. Survivors that are unhooked or unhooked themselves receive unhook protections for 30 seconds, and they receive the following: 10-second haste, endurance status effect. So you get endurance for 30 seconds. You get haste for 30 seconds. And then you also get the new elusive status effect, which is new for DBD. It hides your grunts of pain, aura, scratch marks, pools of blood. So imagine like Iron Will, off the record, all that stuff together pretty much. You're coming off the hook. And also, you no longer you're immune to AFK crows and killer instinct. So if that were ever come into effect, there's no way to track you is pretty much what they're doing. They're saying DBD is like putting their foot down and saying, hey, we're going to try to eliminate tunneling as much as possible. But a lot of it, I think, is a little overtuned, to be honest. One of the big things is you no longer have collision with other players. That includes the killer as well, too. Go back to the hook, and Survivor gets rescued, and they just throw themselves in your face. That's obviously, annoying to deal with. They're using their base kit borrow time, base kit endurance to soak a hit. That's no longer a thing. They get all these extra benefits for longer periods of time to get them out of here. Out of the harm's way, but they also can't use that to their advantage. So I think that's a good change. I don't mind that so much, to be completely honest with you. And obviously, all this stuff gets deactivated with a conspicuous action. So you're not, invulnerable for 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? These effects linger for 3 seconds after being healed for a full health state. These effects are lost performing conspicuous action, which is what we just talked about. These effects are disabled when all generators are completed except for haste and endurance. So you still get the endurance and the traditional haste coming off the hook in the end game collapse. But once the last gen is popped, then all this shit goes out the window. The Survivor is susceptible to attacks and powers, so keep that in mind. You can still hit a Survivor. We found this out when we were playing earlier today. There was a situation where a Survivor got unhooked to my face. They didn't have collision. They went right through my body, but when I swung, I was just within their hitbox, and they were able to soak a hit. So it's still a possibility. It's still there. I think it's going to be a lot more rare than you think it is. The biggest problem that a lot of people are having is is some of the stuff that happens with the penalties for unhooking and tunneling and stuff like that. So right now, when a Survivor is hooked, the hook status is obscured for the killer. I covered this in the PTV video, but I'll throw up some B-roll for you here. Whenever a Survivor is hooked, there's like this fog effect that covers the entire portrait, so you can't see what Survivor it is, if they're rescued or not. You have situations where you can't hear the explosion of the unhook anymore. It's the whole idea is supposed to shroud you in mystery to know exactly when the Survivor was rescued or not. But there's ways around that, which we have checked. We went and looked at. You can run Jagged Compass. You can run Floods of Rage. You can do Make Your Choice. There's a lot of things that still are kind of workarounds to get through that, so you can still know if somebody got unhooked. But the whole premise is DBD doesn't want you knowing what's going on unless you're visibly watching the hook, right? The killer can no longer see the hook's aura. Another thing as well too. So you used to build a hook Survivor, and you see, the yellow hook or whatever. I think it was yellow, right? Where the Survivor's hooked at, what color, whatever it is. The hook status of the HUD is revealed 10 seconds later. So after the Survivor is rescued, then the shroud of fog will release 10 seconds afterwards. Yada yada yada. These effects are disabled when all gens are completed, just like above. So here's some of the bonuses. When unhooking a Survivor that is different from the last hook Survivor, the killer gains the following effects. So that means they're not two continuous hooks. They're not back-to-back on the same Survivor. If they're two individual hooks, two unique hooks, you get on your next kick, you get a 20% bonus on damage reduction to your next kick. I'm sorry, next damage generator action is 20% bonus. That's pretty hefty. That's not terrible, right? You also get 10% haste for 15 seconds. Like, they're trying to incentivize you to like just get away from the hook. Hey, use your incentive to go kick a gen and get 20%. 10% haste to get out of there faster, you know? Breaking a pallet or damaging a survivor removes this bonus. So unfortunately, you don't get the stack with the haste anymore. So you hit somebody with your haste while tapping your break a pallet. It's kind of like breaking bloodlust. That's pretty much what it is. The thing that has been new to us that we saw today when we were playing a whole bunch was revealing all survivors outside of 40 meters that have less than or equal hook states for 4 seconds. So now barbecue and chili is essentially a base kit component to an unhook bonus or a hook bonus for the killer, right? To some degree. I haven't read, they've changed a bunch of perks. I'm assuming barbecue and chili now is obsolete and doesn't work the way it has for the last forever years, right? The only way you're gonna see people is if they have less or equal amount of hook states for 4 seconds. So that's what it is. The whole idea is because they're trying to have you see aura and again, dangle that carrot in your face saying like, go chase these people over here instead of, you know, and obviously keeping the aura of the others suppressed. The following killers have different sets of bonuses. So this is more for your higher tier killers. The Blight, Dark Lord, the Ghoul, Hillbilly, the Krassu, the Nurse, they get less of a bonus. Pretty much everything is chopped in half, give or take. And the reason that's why is because they're compensating for how good their kits are as, in general, can cover ground really fast, etc., etc. That's the first time they've ever done that, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't. This is the first time they've ever made a change like that. Here are the penalties, though, and after I explain this, we went and experimented with a bunch of this stuff. Some of the things that could happen in an actual game with, like, if a survivor kills himself on hook, what happens? Tunnel someone out, they use shoulder the burden, stuff like that. This is where people are kind of upset about. When a survivor dies to a hook action or a mori, there's a total of 6 hook states, the remaining survivors gain 25%. We didn't know what this number was until today. It's a 25% repair speed bonus. So it is absolutely insane. We tested this earlier in a whole bunch of different ways. I'm going to run this in the background as I'm explaining this. This is all 3 of us working on a gen together. Once our 4th survivor had died before, so the killer was getting the full penalty, we were getting the full benefit as a survivor. Then you can just see how fast that generator was by itself. And then here's me doing a gen by my lonesome with the same benefit. As you can see, it's kind of insane. But I think 25% repair speed bonus is pretty big. A little overtuned, in my opinion. When a survivor that was previously hooked is killed or sacrificed, the killer loses the ability to block damage or regress generators by any means. This is another thing as well too. When I was playing on the PTB earlier this morning, covering the new killer, the Krassu, there's a situation where wasn't even tunneling, but I did kill a survivor at 5 hook states. So I hooked them 3 times and then hooked another person twice, and they just so happened to die in the 5th hook. For the rest of the game, I was unable to kick a generator, block it, regress it by any means. They all get blocked by the entity blocker. There's nothing you can do, which is insane. So we were trying to figure out a way. Is there a way that could be abused by survivors? Is there a way that they could like kill themselves on hook? And then if we go for them, what would happen? So I'm gonna roll some of that footage for you now to give you an idea of the many ways that you can and cannot be affected by the tunneling penalty that is this. I tunneled her hard out of the game. Now, if you notice, the icon next to the generators that are remaining now is blocked. Every gen is gonna look like this. I can no longer block, I can no longer kick, or regress this generator by any means. So nobody save Kayla, okay? Nobody save, nobody save. Will this also block the gen? That's what we're gonna look for. All right, so now we already have 2 hooks, as you can see. They have completely faced to stage 2. They're still on the hook, so I still have no idea if they've been rescued or not. Obviously, I know they haven't because we're talking about it, but I have not, I can't see it, right? Kayla is now dead. They did not get rescued in basement. Okay, I can damage. The survivor gets griefed on hook. I can still kick gens, so I'm not blocked. We're gonna do the same exact thing, but this time, can you guys bring the jar of salty lips? I think I already know the answer to this, but I wanna be sure. All right, so I can't tell if they're unhooking. They have 4 salty lips, so I mean, they have some added luck. All right, they went to second, so they did go to second. If they kill themselves, that we don't get penalized for it. Don't finish the gen though. Don't finish that. What happens if they kill themselves on hook? They try to go next, they get rescued, and then I down them. What happens then? All right, they're officially dead. So they just died. They tried to kill themselves on hook. I have the ability to damage. Okay, I can still kick. All right, so what we're gonna do now, same thing, go to struggle, then get rescued. Then I'm going to tunnel you out. All right, here we go. One, nice. Yeah, what can I say, indeed? All right, so they went second, perfect. Now someone come rescue them, please. Now they're gonna get rescued. They are technically on death hook now because they tried to go next. I'm then going to tunnel this person. Beautiful. We're gonna put them back on the hook. They are now dead. And look at that. Now I can't kick anymore. Wow. We're gonna try one more thing. Now, let's try shoulder to burden, okay? All right, here's what we're gonna test. So, I'm gonna hook this survivor. Normal chase, hooked him up. Survivor comes in, will shoulder the burden, which is right now. They now have added a hook state to themselves. They're exposed. So I'm going to then put them on a hook. Don't shoulder this person. Just save them normally. Save normally. They get rescued by a normal survivor later in the trial. Yada, yada, yada. I then go and down the survivor once more. And then we're going to hook them up. And now all the gens are blocked. Another thing as well too, now that you've seen all that stuff, the following perks have been updated to compensate for all this new stuff happening in the new, benefit and penalty system that's happening with tunneling. Barbecue and chili eruption, pop goes weasel, skirt trick, pain res, all this stuff's changed. Babysitter, borrow time, off the record, all changed, and we're gonna go over that in a little bit. The next thing that's really interesting is the slugging reduction update, which is a massive change, equally disturbing, I guess you could say. No one likes to be slugged. Don't get me wrong, there are people that go out of their way to four-man slug, bleed people out, hump them on the ground, all the above, whatever. There are people that do that. But there's also a lot of people that slug in the right time for pressure as a way to, throw the game back in their corner or add some momentum to themselves when they're playing a match. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But this is how they have it currently. When you get slugged, you get put into the dying state, there's a resolve bar that appears underneath the recovery bar, and it's the same thing you see when you're getting the anti-camp. So like if a killer's within close proximity, you can unhook yourself. Same thing. The resolve bar takes 90 seconds to fill. Progress does not reset between downs. The thing that's interesting about that is that progress bar will fill on its own as long as you're on the ground. It'll fill continuously. The problem is that's it. If it happens again, after 90 seconds, you can pick yourself up, but then you don't have to run through that bar again. And the reason why that is an issue is because of this. Once the resolve bar is full, the survivor gains the ability to pick themselves up from the dying state after fully recovering. So we were like, okay, well, if you're getting slugged on the ground for 90 seconds, that's kind of insane. But now survivors can crawl and recover at the same time. So they get the perk, essentially tenacity, for free, right? And it's completely automatic, so you don't have to sit there and hold your mouse one down or hold whatever controller button it is for recover. You go down the ground, you instantly start recovering, you can move around, and you get some speed. Recovery is now automatic and no longer requires a button to be held. We just said, when self-recovery is available, tap the interact button to pick yourself up. Crawling speed increases over time when left in the dying state, so it ramps up from 0.7 meters per second to 1.05. I know that's not like incredibly fast speeds, but you are increasing in speed, which is allowing you, the slug survivor, to wiggle and crawl your way to a bush, somewhere edge of map where the killer may not know where you are, and then you can pick yourself back up. So the problem arises when you get slugged. If you're able to crawl away somewhere, then you have a situation where a survivor's in the vicinity, killer goes, I'm gonna go put aggro on them, you crawl away, then they don't know where the hell you are, and then you can pick yourself up, and if it happens again, you get to keep doing it over and over and over again. But one of the things that's really interesting when we tested is plot twist. Plot twist, as you see here, I'm gonna show you in this B-roll, plot twist, you can activate it yourself, and you can actually start using and loading up the resolve bar by yourself. So you can essentially farm the 90 seconds without even being down by the killer themselves. What makes it even more fucked is you have a situation where you can be downed, and we tested this. As long as you have a teammate nearby or anyone that's running Sabo, if you go and you get downed, and let's say you've already farmed all that stuff, the 90 seconds with plot twist on your own, when you go and you get down, a survivor can run it over there with a Sabo the hook. The killer has no choice but to drop you. They drop you. You can crawl to a pallet, and by the time, if you're running flip-flop, plot twist, unbreakable, and power struggle, by the time they hit that survivor and come back to you, you're already ready to knock the pallet and save yourself. And it's pretty insane. Just take a look at this. So I'm gonna plot twist, and then and then hit my teammate. Hit my teammate, and then come try to pick me up. Come get me. Come pick me up. Boom. Is that enough time? Wow. The fact that you can farm plot twist is insane. Like, all you have to do is run this build, run into you're in chase, drop yourself in a pallet, make sure you have a teammate within the vicinity to pull aggro for a handful of seconds, a brief moment, and then you're good. Imagine if your teammate blinds him after you plot, you have time. Dude, there's plenty of situations. That's the thing. If I die, if I'm in chase and I have that build, I down myself in a pallet because I know immediately that I'm gonna go down. I die in a pallet. I have a teammate that I'm on communication with in Discord that's literally following me around. Picks me up. They get pallet stunned. I get off. If they don't and they hesitate for 5-6 seconds, I power struggle myself. So as you can tell, that kind of stuff is crazy. I don't know if that's how plot twist is intended, but I think the tunneling thing is obviously an issue in its own. I think it's a little overtuned, but the slugging thing is 100% going to be taken advantage of, in my personal opinion. But here's some of the reworks that they've done to compensate for some of the new things that are happening with these tunneling, anti-tunneling, anti-slugging updates. So Babysitter, after unhooking a survivor, you see the killer's aura, and you see the survivor's aura and the killer's aura for 12 seconds. So that's a complete rework to how Babysitter works. If I'm not mistaken, Babysitter used to like suppress scratch marks and pools of blood on the person you saved, and then all that stuff. So that's obviously different. Borrowed time. I don't know why borrowed time is still in the game, because they have so much shit to protect your ass from getting tunneled. But survivors you unhook retain their unhook protection for additional 12 seconds. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you get 42 seconds of all those effects. If you want to run that and just run around for 42 seconds, it'd be stupid. Clairvoyance, increase the aura reading duration to 12 seconds from 10. Small. From the competition, I don't know anyone that really runs this shit, to be honest, but increase the bonus repair progress speed for 120 seconds. Whatever. Hope, decrease the haste status effect when the exit gates are powered to 5% was 7. So once the last gen pops, Hope got nerfed slightly, so now it's no longer 7%, now it is 5, right? No Mither, increase the volume reduction for Grunts of Pain to 100% on all tiers. So when you run No Mither, you have free Iron Will. You make no noise at all. The big one though is off the record, they removed the endurance status effect, because off the record used to suppress your Grunts of Pain and give you endurance for 80 seconds, which was a long time. A lot of survivors could use that to their advantage to kind of like kite the killer and soak hits for the person that they're in chase with. But now they've removed the endurance status effect altogether, because you get that shit for free pretty much. They removed the stipulation that disables it once the exit gates are powered. So once the last gen pops, you do get the benefit of off the record still. So you get all that stuff, but no endurance. They also added a new effect. While active, you do not leave scratch marks while sprinting. So that's it. Plot twist. Added a new effect. Increases recovery speed by 25% when used. So with all the shit that's going on with the slugging update, they decided to revisit plot twist and make it so you get an additional 25% when you're recovering. Why? This way I don't understand why we needed that. If it's working as intended on the PTB, and people are able to farm their own recovery timer, the 90-second slug timer, by themselves, that needs to go. Period. Remember watching from the clips, I was able to get downed, and if the killer took 5 to 6 seconds without picking up at a pallet, which majority of the time they wouldn't pick me up at a pallet, I'm gonna power struggle them. I win free, right? Tenacity has a new effect. It prevents your aura from being red while in the dying state, and increases your calling speed to 25% once 50. So this is for them to offset the speed you get for free when you are in the dying state. But now your aura cannot be read. So killers running, you know, being able to find the slug survivor with barbecue or whatever. Well, actually, I don't know what barbecue does anymore. I don't know. Yeah, so you can't be seen. You still move really fast. So 25% on top of what you get is pretty quick. I don't know the exact math, but it's nuts. Vigil. Survivors can now only benefit from one Vigil perk effect at a time. It doesn't stack. That's what it is. So Vigil got nerfed. I mean, thank God. Nurse's Calling increased the range at 32 meters. However, no longer affects survivors who are in the dying state. So when survivors are being healed in the dying state, it's considered a healing action when they're getting picked up off the ground. So now Nurses does not pick that up anymore. So they did that and compensated by giving us an extra 4 meters. Take that as you will. Barbecue and Chili rework. After hooking all survivors once, so we're kind of back to the old token system with barbecue, increase the base generator damage by 5%. That's what barbecue does now. I'm going to talk about the important stuff. Dead Man Switch decreases generator blocking duration to 35 seconds, was 50. So it used to be any person that got off the gen, it would block. Was old Dead Man Switch? I think it was 40 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. It was any gen that a survivor let go of, whether they screamed or they just got off of themselves. They'd all block for 40 seconds, I think it was, originally. Then they buffed it to 50. So it was just one. Now it's just 35, period. So you get one gen that's blocked. The first one to let go of the gen gets blocked first, only for 35 seconds instead of 50. So 15 seconds, that's pretty big, man. That's pretty massive. Deerstalker rework. Deerstalker, in case you don't know, used to be able to see the survivor's auras in the dying state from like up to like, I don't know what it was, 40 meters or some shit. It was a very slug friendly perk you would bring if you're trying to, you know, slug people. But now when a survivor sees your aura, you see their aura. Every 30 seconds, reveal your aura to the survivor with the lowest chase time for 3 seconds. We ran this earlier. Deerstalker, I was getting passive aura reading all the time in places I probably wouldn't have been able to see. Normally, I don't really mind this. Here's some footage of me just randomly finding someone waiting for a flashlight save. Not bad. It's not terrible. Eruption. I don't know what's going on here. Decreased generator progress loss to 5% was 10. GG's to Eruption. We used to have it where they were incapacitated, which I think was a little too insane, to be honest. Back with old Eruption, then they made it so now it's 10%. You get to see the survivor's aura. Now it's 5%. What the fuck are we doing? Hex Ruin is back, sort of. They increased the generator regression speed to 150%, was 100. So Ruin was like kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts. If you didn't find the totem, if the totem stood up and stayed standing, then, you know, eventually it was going to chew at that gen for a while, right? Now they buffed it by 50%. You will notice that for sure. You will notice Hex Ruin will be doing a little more damage, but it's a totem, man. It's a totem, you know? I found this to be interesting. Monitor and abuse. While in chase, your terror radius is now increased by 15%, was 8 meters. So while you're in chase, you have a big terror radius, whatever. That's not a big deal. I think a lot of people use monitor and abuse to like stack it with other killers that had smaller terror radiuses with add-ons so they can have the element of surprise, right? This was interesting. Otherwise, your terror radius is now decreased by 25%, was 8 meters. So if we do some quick math here, a 32 meter terror radius, right, is 8 meters. So that hasn't really changed. The killers that take this in the shorts the most are the ones that have smaller terror radius by default. So like 24 meters, for instance, instead of it being a flat 8, is now 6. So shit like that. Small things that I don't know why it needs to happen, but that's just how they are. Again, why? I don't understand why. There is some light at the end of the tunnel for a brief moment. Oppression got buffed, which is pretty cool. Increased the random generator selection to 4, was 3. So if you kick a gen, anyone working on a generator would get a difficult skill check, and then it would surge to 3 other gens and have them start regressing. So it wasn't terrible. Now it's 4 gens. Obviously, it's okay. And they decreased the cooldown to 35 seconds, was 40. What I don't understand is like how they decide to go with stuff like this, like oppression, and then go and look at like things like eruption or like monitor and abuse and change values there. I don't get it. Scourgehook Pain Resonance now was nerfed. Decreased the generator progress loss to 12%, was 20. I think the reason as to why they're doing that is because if you get your first fresh hook and it so happens to be a Scourge hook, your next kick is going to be, what was it, 20%? I think it was. They didn't want you to go ahead and lose 12% on the, or 20% on the gen, and they kick it for an additional 20. So I understand why they do that. I wonder if people will still run it. We'll see. Septic Touch, pretty cool. Increase the linear duration of blindness and exhausted status effects for 30 seconds, That shit just needs to be changed. Septic touches. I can't help but think of a septic tank. You know what's in septic tank? Septic tanks? Poop. Shit. This perk is shit. That's what it is. And the last one is ultimate weapon. Increase the range of an opening locker to 40 meters. Reduce the cooldown to 45 with 60. So ultimate weapon got a buff. Ideally, all the generator things, all your generator defense and regression perks were pretty much completely gutted for the most part to compensate, to try to get you to feel rewarded, and chase that dangling carrot for not for hooking unique survivors and things like that. I understand why they did it, but with all the pallet density, all the crazy slugging things that could possibly happen in the mix with Sabo stuff and being able to farm your own slug timer on top of like just, playing the game normally. And if you just you're supposed to let a survivor go. There was a situation earlier where I had someone dead to rights, but if I killed them, I was going to be at 5 hooks. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I don't want to do that because then I'm going to give the survivors a bonus and I can't kick gens. Like, why would I do that? Someone said earlier in my chat that you shouldn't have to do math. You shouldn't, when you're playing DVD, you should just be able to go in there and just have fun and just run around, Good point. Paying residents already encourages not telling for going for individual survivors, but they don't want you to be able to stack a massive kick. It's pretty much what that is. So, I don't know. I know that it's a PTB. There's a lot of things that can change. That's why we test them. But I'm wondering, because of how big of an update this was and how much work went into it, I'm afraid that they may just push and move forward with it and chip at it as we go on. But other than that, it's pretty crazy. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I appreciate you guys for watching, and good luck out there.